Well, thank you guys so much for being here this afternoon. As Dr. Ken stated, my name is Angel Bush, and I'm the founder of Black Women in Artificial Intelligence. And one of the things I want to let you know that I am a call and response type of speaker, so this just won't be me speaking. This will be a conversation with Black women in artificial intelligence. So, a little bit about me. This all started with a robot. I wanted to build a robot named Usher, and many of you know who Usher is, that would come to me and serve me hot cocoa. And so that was the goal, to build a robot that would serve me, and his name would be Usher. Okay, everybody ready for this? Okay, and so I went to an Internet of Things event in Houston, Texas in 2019. And so when I went to the event, I did not see a full reflection of myself or what would be needed to provide access and opportunity to marginalized and underrepresented people in the community. And so while I am at this event, I continue to hear artificial intelligence is the fourth industrial revolution. And in that moment, I said, well, you can't have a revolution without Black women. And so that was the genesis for Black women in artificial intelligence. And so I travel around the world and I discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I also discuss PAI. And we will discuss what PAI is as we go even further. But that is who I am. In August of 2020, we've officially founded Black Women in Artificial Intelligence, where our mission is to educate, engage, embrace, and empower Black women in the artificial intelligence sector. And so our membership is now on 5 continents. It's been 2 years and 3 months. And we're on North America, South America, Europe, Australia, and Africa. 85% of our members have a bachelor's degree or higher. And the top U.S. states for Black women in AI membership is California, Colorado, Florida, New York, and Texas. I'm not exactly sure about why Colorado, but for some reason, we've captured Colorado. And that's who we are as an organization. Some of our initiatives: we've partnered with organizations for a PhD research assistantship, a mentorship program with Amazon, a data science cohort, autonomous vehicles and computer vision cohorts, a $5,000 machine learning scholarship. There is a National Black Women in Artificial Intelligence Day. It is August the 1st. Annually of every year. This is not something we made up. We worked with a congressperson of the United States, U.S. District 18, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, and it is officially declared Black Women in Artificial Intelligence Day on, again, August 1st. So make sure you write that down so you can celebrate it with us. And there's also, we provide professional development workshops, diversity and AI summit partnerships, access to GPT-3. Some of you may be familiar with that, as well as other learning and development initiatives. And aligning with our mission to educate, engage, embrace, and empower Black women in artificial intelligence, we've established amazing partnerships to extend the pipeline of access and opportunity. And we've partnered again in 2 years and 3 months with Amazon, Create Labs, Capital One, Dreamy, Expedia, Fourth Brain, Swoon, NVIDIA, the University of Houston, as well as Central Michigan University. And now it's time that, now that you know a little bit about me, it is time for the conversation. I'm sorry, let's go back. Something important. We are building a technology center. We've acquired 3.4 acres of land in a marginalized community in Saginaw, Michigan. And so we're focused on education, and the centers of excellence will be education, innovation, and research. So I had an opportunity today to go see your maker space, and I was very impressed with what you guys are doing here. We were able to find out more information about Clemson University. They have an innovation lab, and that is our blueprint. And so this is what we've established and what we're doing in the next 3 to 4 years. So the land is already purchased. So this is not just a dream. We're moving forward with building this center. The future is a continued focus on education via our cohort learning environments with leading corporations, governmental agencies, and educational institutions. We're going to expand our global reach, including creating collegiate chapters. So you may see a chapter of Black Women in AI here at the University of Miami, as well as regional chapters throughout the world. And now is time for the conversation. The first question is, no one wants to be seen as the bad guy. When we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and retention, I'm going to continue to say that throughout the day because people often forget retention when we're having these conversations. In order to create an environment that works for everyone, we first have to deal with the challenges. And the first challenge is the difficult conversations. And they're difficult because no one, as I said, wants to be seen as the bad guy. These are the conversations that you have with yourself, that you have about your organization, about your community, about your university. And so, as I stated, they can be very difficult conversations because they involve self-reflection. It's a matter of looking in the mirror and seeing the things that you may not like about yourself. It's the same thing with your organization. So you have to ask yourselves 3 questions. Where are you as a company, a university, a community, or organization? Where would you like to be as an organization? And what is your capacity for becoming what you say you want to be? So as you begin to reflect and think about where you are as a company, the difficult conversation is, are you going to be transparent? Before you get to diversity, equity, and inclusion, that self-reflection has to take place. Where are you? Do you have 1% minorities in your company or your organization? Are you at 10%? Are you at 12%? You have to be able to say, yes, this is where we are. This is not about pointing fingers because, listen, we're here now. Now let's resolve the issue. So we have to ask ourselves, where are we as a company? And then the next question you have to go to is, where would you like to be? Is it realistic what you're saying that you want to be? Where would you like to be in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years, in the next 20 years? Where would you like to be? And then you have to ask yourself, what is our capacity for becoming what we say we want to be? What is the capacity for you to increase the number of students? What is your capacity for learning cultural competency? Where do you want to be? And what is your capacity? Do you have the right people in place? Are you sending the right people to have the conversations? Because that's probably more important than anything. Do the people that you're sending believe in the message that you're sending them to give? People come to Black Women in AI all the time. We want to partner with you. We want to partner with you. We have this diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative, and we want to partner with you. But why are you partnering with us? Is it because this is a trend? Because diversity, equity, and inclusion is a buzzword? We go into the why, because that's the next challenge. You have to ask yourself, why are we doing this? What is the purpose behind this initiative? And when you come to us, I ask you to do one thing. Don't treat us as a trend. Treat us as a human. So when we're coming up with these initiatives, when we're saying we believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion, but we're sending someone who doesn't believe in our message, then the person that you're coming to is not going to respond well. We're not going to resolve problems. We're not going to solve issues if we don't ask the question of why. Why is this important to your organization? Is this about your performance reviews? Or is this really to be transformational instead of transactional? And that's one of the most important things that we can do when we're going into these systems and we're going into these situations of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're focused on a transaction, but we should be focused on the transformation that we want to see in our campus, in our community, in our corporations. So we have to start with the number 2 challenge, and that is discovering your why. Oftentimes there's this discussion, well, we want to let people have a seat at the table. Well, let me give you just a small glimpse of the truth. I don't want a seat at the table. Don't invite me if you're trying to give me a seat at the table. Because a seat at the table without power, authority, and influence is just me taking up space. So we have to be careful when we say, yeah, we all want to sit at the table. No, I've been at the table where I could see that the decisions that were being made was incorrect. This is the wrong direction, but I didn't have power, authority, or influence. So when you're creating, again, these initiatives, when you're sending someone as a representative of your organization, you need to make sure that they have power, authority, and influence. It is not enough to set up an office space. It is not enough to give someone a title without power, authority, and influence. They can't make a decision, and yet you say that you're committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They can't hire anybody. They can't fire anybody. They don't have a budget, but they have a title. It's not enough. If we're going to be committed, let's be committed to real change and not just, okay, we're paying lip service. This is popular right now. Again, we're going back to that capacity. Does your DE&I change when the administration changes? We have to make sure that we're aware of, again, our capacity. We got to make sure that we're aware of our why. It's extremely important to understand your why. And the third challenge is to build trust. Oftentimes we think, okay, if we build it, they'll trust us. But there are some communities who may not trust you based on past experiences. It may not be an experience with you, but it may be an experience with a system that has been created for some and not for all. So we have to start building trust in those communities where we're saying, we want to invite you to our campus. We have a great campus. There's diversity here. We love one another. All of the marketing things that happen. But is this a great environment for me to be successful in? It is not enough to invite me here and give me a scholarship and all of those things, but you don't surround me with the things that I need in order to be successful. So before you even get to diversity, equity, and inclusion, you have to answer those questions. You have to do the self-reflection in order for this to work. And I stand before you and I tell you I don't have all the answers. And I don't believe that there is one answer, but I have an answer. And this is the route that has worked for Black women in AI. When companies come to us and say we have a DE&I program, I tell them, remember retention, because it is not enough to have 100 people come into your organization and then they leave the next year. Your performance review may look well that year, but the next year, what are we doing? Are we just adding people to the roles? Are we just bringing people in for no reason? We aren't giving them an opportunity to succeed. Am I only being brought in at a certain level and I can never rise to another level? Again, what is the capacity of your organization? I am not here just to be here. I want to be successful just as the next person is successful. And so we have to pay attention to those things as we continue on with these conversations. The next thing is to trust the vision. After you've overcome challenges, you have to trust the vision. Trust the vision of your organization. When people come to us, I tell them to do 3 things. I want you to know the vision, educate, engage, embrace, and empower. I want you to understand the vision, educate, engage, embrace, and empower. But more importantly, I want you to trust the vision, educate, engage, embrace, and empower. Because when you trust the vision, you'll tell other people about it. So the representatives that you send in your quest for diversity, equity, and inclusion, if they trust your vision, they'll tell other people about it. And then people will begin to trust, and there won't be a problem with coming to your university. There won't be a problem with being an employee of your organization, because then we know that you trust the vision, that you understand the vision, and then we can work together to expand access and opportunity. And like I said before, I am not a speaker that's going to sit here, speak. That's not going to happen. This is going to be interactive. And so I'm going to go around the room. And Ken knows Dr. K knows what I'm about to do. He already knows. So I'm going one by one. Don't be afraid. I will call on you. Don't worry about it. The young lady right here in the blue sweater, it looks blue from here. All right. Talk to me about your why. What is your why?
My why is it reflects on what my interest in, which is why I'm here.
Yes.
Is creating meaningful technologies to educate people and make it accessible to all. So that's my interest. I'm a musician, but I'm also a techie. So just how do we use music in meaningful ways, and how do we use technology in meaningful ways to make things accessible? Knowledge, as I call, if I could draw upon like cultural capital.
Mm-hmm.
So those of us who are fortunate enough to know how to do this, how to apply for this, how do we make these kinds of knowledge that we take for granted
Mm-hmm.
and make it accessible to all?
Okay. I like
interest.
it. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
I feel like I should give some context. So I actually work for Miami-Dade County, but I work for the mayor in data and tech space. And so I believe in high performance government.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to enable that through intentionally lifting up folks that are kind of left behind,
Mm-hmm.
have interest, and also believe in like breaking across the silos that we tend to form in government around our departments and focusing on human-centered, effective services.
Yes. And that's your why?
Yes. That was a whole lot mixed in one. The why was in there somewhere.
Okay. All right. I'll work with you with that. The young lady in the gray.
Good afternoon, everyone. My why, my name is Ellen Phillip. My why is actually much more micro. I started to do some work with some of the AIs that are publicly available, art, the music, some of is it Jarvis now or is it Jameson? I can never remember. But basically, there are literally, for $50 a month now, you can work with an AI to basically be creative. And it occurred to me as an academic that once my students actually figure out that they can afford it, and I use that word loosely,
Mm-hmm.
what ethical guidelines are we helping them construct
Wow.
to determine, is it the AI doing the work? Am I guiding the AI? How is this plagiarism? How is this self-plagiarism? I mean, there is a slew of questions and challenges that we are not yet envisioning or even asking, and our students are going to be way ahead of us before we even figure out what are we talking about here. So, sorry, my micro is really, really micro, and that is to say, we've got real challenges ahead, and this stuff is way, way, way ahead of us, and we are not yet engaging our kids.
That's good. That's good. This young lady in black.
I work for IDSC. I do the graphic design, and I have a little phrase, you're only as good as your graphic design, because you put a face to the world, but it's not up to snuff.
Mhm.
So I feel like whenever we have an opportunity or we make an opportunity, I'd like to see more women in a powerful role, and retention is a huge thing because I've read where people get opportunities but they never rise and so they leave.
Mm.
So
Yes, yes.
that resonated with me.
Young man.
My name is Zishan Aziz. I'm an alumni of University of Miami. I was an intern with the center when I was a student here. I just spent 2 years in cybersecurity, and my why is I work in the field of like cybersecurity intelligence, which traditionally is like military or intelligence people work in it. So like I'm from a non-traditional background, doing really interesting niche research, and industries like that tend to be pretty walled. Like if you're not former military intelligence or of certain background, they don't want you to play or like interview or even do the roles. So I have good experience in like convincing people to like let me work for them, and then I do really well. And my why is like I mentor a bunch of students and try to also get them into security non-traditionally, and it's very satisfying. And part of it, it's like unfair that it's hard for students that are really passionate or interested in something to do maybe supercomputing or AI or like niche cybersecurity roles. But all they really need is like peer mentors that are a little older than them to just weed through like the BS that they went through, just so they don't have to go through it as bad. But yeah, if they're persistent enough, they'll find opportunities from what I've seen.
Okay, okay. This young man?
And I'm Mario Ranger, also I work at IDSC. And yeah, to the why is interesting questions. I've been at the university for almost 30 years. I love technology. I've always been in that space. So I'm in a really good place here. I find it fascinating, interesting. But the technology in and of itself doesn't do anything. I think what we are is we're enablers. We're trying to solve real problems that people have. And just because you have a piece of technology doesn't solve problems. So how do we bring these problems and the potential solutions in technology together? That's what we're trying to do.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Pedro Dablo. I also work with IDSC. I am University of Miami alumni. I don't like I don't want to get politically, but why not? Like, even though the situation is obviously a lot better than it has been in the not so distant past, like I think there has to be a lot more change, and I think like the way that it's worked for me is I've met people that have influenced the way that I think, and I think that if you can't grow yourself as a person, then there's no way you're going to be able to help anybody else. You seem like a really intelligent, highly recommended speaker, and like I couldn't be more excited to hear.
Oh, well, thank you. I didn't expect that, but thank you so much. You sir.
My name is Nicholas Alberti. I also work at IDSC.
Okay.
My why is that I'm very big on self-improvement in terms of the technology that I love, the software that I use at my job, and even my education, because I want to use that to help others and the users that I service or our department. I think not just me, but everybody might hit roadblocks every now and then. But my parents have always taught me that persistence is your greatest quality, to never give up and move on endeavor.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Evelyn. I'm also at IDSC. Seems like there's a lot of people here from IDSC. I work with all these people and am impressed by them every single day. And I think my role and what I think where I want to be is to help them, because with them, I trust the message.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be that messenger for them, so that when people are coming around and wanting to engage with IDS, that they trust what we're trying to do, what we're trying to enable, what we're trying to provide.
Yes.
And that they know that we're coming in with integrity, with knowledge, with expertise, and that we are a resource where they can come and count on. So I hope that I am a trusted messenger to deliver
Love
that
that.
to all our users and the community here at Beyond, for sure.
Awesome.
Ms. Jackie?
Yes. Your why.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank everybody for coming out for this exciting topic. My why is pretty much anything that's educational and adds on to our existing platform. My day-to-day work is always an interest of mine. And when I saw them, as you put the word diversity, that definitely sparks me to find out or hear from you. Is it how real it is?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it, as you clearly identified at the beginning of your conversation, is it a trend?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I thank you for opening that door and shooting that light. So now it just makes me want to follow like
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for that. This young
I work at UN Communications, and so I'm just writing about this event to share knowledge about what you're sharing today about Black women and AI with the rest of the university that may not have come tonight, so that they can read about it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys for sharing your why and being truthful in your why. Because again, as you guys, those who are in school, looking to graduate and all those things, you'll go out into the world where you're working and being in different places. And diversity, equity, inclusion, and retention is going to come up. And just as you know your why, you're going to have to know the why of your organization in order to engage more people to be a part of whatever system that you're in. In particular, we're talking about artificial intelligence. There needs to be a call to action. This is one call to action, this conversation. But there needs to be a call to action in your organizations, in your universities, in your community, to say, okay, we've talked about it. That's great. We've had the conversation, because I believe that change starts with conversation. But now what are we going to do about it? One example that I can give you, as Dr. Ken stated, we met at the Aim Ahead symposium. And there was a young man that came up to me afterwards. And he said, I want to work with you. And I get that a lot. So a lot of people afterwards, oh, I want to work with you. Okay. Some call, some don't. But this young man called me 2 weeks later. He said, we need to set up a meeting. Right? Never met me before, heard me speak. We're all at the same conference. 2 weeks later, he called me. He said, let's partner and let's offer a PhD research assistantship. Now, what we found, and I don't have all the data in, is that when we partnered with them, and this research assistantship is worth a lot of money, let me just say that. And so when we created that partnership, they received more African American women to apply than they had in years. So this is what I mean by a call to action. Let's do the work. And, again, we can move beyond. Our 2023 is moving beyond words. We can have these conversations, but they were ready. Dr. Ken, we met. He called, hey, we're going to bring you to the University of Miami. I get that same thing from a lot of people. He called. He was true to his word because he understood his why, and he understands where he wants to assist in taking this university. So again, there is a call to action on all of us to do the work. Now let's talk about, once you've answered all the questions of who we are, where we want to be, once you've answered all of those questions, we talk about opportunities. Opportunities are around us. With a click of a button, there's an opportunity, right? How many of you Google? Yes, yes, okay, this is not gonna be a quiet session, I promise. You guys use Google and you click for whatever information you want. So when I say a call to action, we have to do the work. There are plenty of organizations that support marginalized communities that are dedicated to marginalized communities. There's Black in AI, there's Black in robotics, there's Black women in data, of course there's Black women in AI, and other organizations that support diverse initiatives. So we have to be willing to do the work, but we cannot put up roadblocks when we arrive. I'm not sure if you've ever spoken to someone who told you their dream. I want to be this, I want to be that. Give you an example. A young lady told me she wanted to be a chef. I found out some information and said, hey, they have a scholarship. I've looked at the application. You qualify. What was the response? Well, I don't have a ride. I can't get there. I don't know whether it's called a uniform or not, but the chef had in the uniform. All of these things, she put up a roadblock to her success without weighing the options or the opportunities that was presented to her. When organizations come to us, well, I don't have a budget. It's okay, you have brilliance. You have ideas. You have networks. You have resources. It's not always about money, because again, for us, it's about transformation. So what resources do you have that you're bringing to the table to make this work, again, to change the systems that have been in place to serve some and not all of us? And so we have to be careful when we go into the room with confidence. We have to go into the room understanding what we want to see happen. So again, opportunities are all over the place. The young lady with the pink shirt. Yes, yes, yes. And what is your name, ma'am?
Marie, you know, chance and I've been with y'all since the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. That is
she saved my life during the pandemic.
Yes.
I'm so ready to take over the world, thanks to her.
Yes. This is a member of Black Women in AI. So again, we're everywhere. We really are.
Sorry, I had to, my husband's getting cancer treatment, so I had to.
That's okay. You're fine. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And so we're going to have these conversations. And I want to talk about the real conversation of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the young lady right here, why is it important? Tell me why diversity, equity, and inclusion is important.
Because we haven't been included for so long, and so I think it's very important to place emphasis on providing opportunities for people that haven't been included, that haven't had that equity for so long. We've been marginalized, like you said, for so long, and so I think we have to be brought up to speed and brought up to the same playing field as everyone else.
Mm-hmm. The young lady in the peach, it looks peach, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I think, people often say representation, but I think for me, living in or working in an environment where I'm surrounded by other minority individuals makes me build my own self-efficacy and believe that I can actually, do something in the field that I'm in.
Awesome. Young man.
Well, I think for so long, like you said, there's been a lot of underrepresentation that is in AI. I think this is the right time that everyone needs to do.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. You? Yes.
Because different. So I think for me it's important because different people have different experiences, and if you work in a diverse environment, they are all bringing up all these different experiences and helping you grow and troubleshoot.
Okay. So Dr. Ken, I want you to give me one way to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion and retention.
How much time do you have? One of the things that I
Don't
learned.
interject, because I'm just
I'm a philosopher.
Yes.
So it takes me 10 minutes just to clear my throat. What we've got, there's nothing ethically interesting about racism. No debate, there's no dilemma, there's no two sides of this argument. It's wrong. And in our country, we have allowed it to persist for too long. The very fact that we're having this conversation now, and have had it over and over and over again, maybe since the Civil War, if not beforehand, suggests that we have a lot of work to do, and we keep not learning precisely what it is we need, how we take that why, which I think is ultimately a moral question. Why? Because it's wrong to have it any other way.
That's right.
So if it's so wrong and so obvious, why is your country so racist still? And that's for maybe politicians. You're in a state, by the way, not unlike, I mean, now, this is not about politics. What do you think the governor of Texas would say about this? Or the governor of Florida would say about this? Why are we having those debates now? What is to be done, to answer your question, is to we put our shoulders to the wheel. That's what we do. When we identify something that needs to be fixed, because it's overwhelmingly a moral imperative, that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
We are imperfect in many ways, and obviously we've never claimed that we've achieved that level of perfection. But in the meantime, there are young people, there are people in this room who say, I want the world to be different. I want to play a role in that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it by working, by writing, and ultimately your university by teaching. That's what I get to do. That's what we get to do. Everybody teach software engineering can talk about bias in software engineering. Developing curricular tools for people to do that. To have an ethics component as part of all of these initiatives, I think is a really, it makes it clear that while we can debate a lot of things when it comes to politics and ethics, there are some things that are actually no longer up for debate.
That's right.
And I think that perhaps the governor hasn't realized that, but most the rest of us have. And so that's what I think we need to do. Honest people putting their shoulder to the wheel to make the world better.
Okay, I like it. I like it. The young lady right here, she's sitting, you. Can you give me some insight? Because what we're going to do is we're going to walk away with something before we leave here. You know, I know everybody's kind of quiet, but I don't work well with quiet. So just an FYI. So we're going to leave here with something. We have key takeaways, have the conversation, do the work, prepare the celebration. And I'll talk to you about the celebration in a second. But what I want to ask you is, from your perspective, what can the university do? What can the system do? What can be done to increase diversity, equity, inclusion, and retention?
I think, well, I think sometimes we look, even when we speak to like Black people, we look to a particular type of Black person to answer certain questions. But it's nice to go to like different neighborhoods to find their perspective on the topic, so that we can have diversity even amongst Black populations. So I think that's something that we can benefit from.
So having the conversation with diverse groups.
Right.
Okay.
But even amongst our community.
Right. Yeah, because there is diversity even among our community, definitely. The young lady in the dress? Yes. Yes, you.
All right, Doc, be nice.
Very nice. So the question was, what can the institution do?
What can, whether it's the university or this country, the city, the state, locally, globally?
I think she's having, I know where she's coming from. I could read her body language. Yes, because I think, I'm sorry, I love philosophy too. The conversations, the uncomfortable conversations we have not had, not only amongst other diverse groups, but I think she hit it on the nail within our own communities. And I think the problem, one of the reasons why I ran for office last year, is that we haven't had them. We've relied on both parties. Unfortunately, it's not a two-party system. It really is a one-party oligarchy. And the media and their donors and the lobbyists, they won't let us have they've never let us have these conversations. I think, like, really honestly, as being an activist for over 30 years, and 14 years old in Miami,
47 next year. After Obama, it was like, Obama, we got him in the office, and then we were like, okay, that's it. And for 8 years, other conversations were happening amongst other diverse communities, but both parties wouldn't let us have these uncomfortable conversations. And now where we're at now, with, like you said, the gentleman said, regarding the governor and Governor Abbott, but not only him, but also the Democratic Party. Both parties are at fault for this. Now that anger has gone, not only went online, it's now that anger is now sprouted out. From Charlottesville, from 9/11, Iraq War. There's so many pinnacle moments in our at least the last 20 years, and that drama from Gore versus Bush. We never had those conversations. 9/11, it was like, okay, why did this happen?
Right.
We unfortunately never had, and then Katrina, it's like we never had Obama. We
So-
never had those conversations, and unfortunately.
So you want to
now
have
see-
the uncomfortable conversation.
I'm always down to have them. You know that.
Yes, I know. I know.
And it's terrible because
Yeah.
our social medias, I go back to the IRC chat room days. So I've been online since 1994.
Right.
Escape days, you know what I'm saying? So for me, I always had uncomfortable conversations in our chat rooms. And unfortunately, our social medias decided to take over those old websites. And where we would have threads go on for like days and days and days of uncomfortable conversations. And you have a little back and forth with somebody on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and boom, you're gone.
Right.
I lost so many friends on these social medias that we would have conversations with. Uncomfortable
So-
as they may be.
So I think
That's where we're at.
we can provide those opportunities, and that's one of the first things I talk about, is that we have to have those self-reflection conversations where we self-reflect.
Unfortunately, and now we're gonna have to, in some ways, to get through the next, and we know what's coming next, let's be real.
Well, but she's here.
But yeah,
And
and we're gonna have these no.
We're doing our sorry best.
We're gonna have these uncomfortable conversations, and that's fine, because again, you have to have the difficult conversations before you can even create an office, create a space, create a title, create a position. You have to really do self-reflection of who you are as a company and where you want to be. The young lady in the dress, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Yes, you. Yes.
Sophia George.
Oh, welcome. Okay, I'm ready.
So I come to this with a very pragmatic sense. So yes, have difficult conversations, but while we're doing that, we build.
Yes.
And we do it with intention. And so some of the things, like what we have done already, I'm thankful that the institution has supported the vision of leaders like Donette and Jafari Allen, Dr. Francis and Jafari Allen here at the University of Miami, that also allowed us to build the Center for Global Black Studies, not only for Black people. Clearly, like there is a space for the Cuban population. As much as we can grow and be inclusive in the different spaces that require people to feel community and I know the belonging word, but just to feel like they're in a space that they can be themselves.
Yes.
And do the science, do the academic work, and also to interact with the community in ways that are very innovative. So that's one thing. Is as we are speaking and having these conversations that we're building at the same time.
Yes.
So that we're not doing one sequentially, with being very intentional. And to do that, you need to invest. You need money. Money from within, being brave and courageous about saying that this is important to us, that we want to have space for people with different voices and who look different and behave differently. And that is why it's so important, because our science, our literature, our art, the things that we create become highly texturized and truly the fabric of where we are, right? And that's the best space to be in. So these are the things, right?
Yes.
So money, build, and have the conversation.
I love it. I love it.
Would it be all right, Dr. George, just for people who don't know you, to say what you
Yes,
do with the
please.
University of Miami?
So I'm an associate professor in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology. I'm a molecular geneticist. I'm not a clinician. But I also serve as the Associate Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to add a thought about what makes the University of Miami kind of special. As crazy and ridiculous as an institution as it can be, I've been here almost 24 years, and I'm originally from New York. And I think when I came from New York, I thought New York, California, that's what diversity looks like. But Miami, with all of its faults and flaws and warts, the university community has an extraordinary mission, but also it's an extraordinary place.
Wow.
And I say that because very few academic environments bring together black people, brown people, yellow people, whatever color version you want, and they claim Buddhism, they speak Russian, and oh, by the way, they're gay. And those identities find texture as well as community in this place.
Wow.
We don't do great, but I tell every person who comes here, do not get it twisted. You meet me here and you ask questions.
Yes.
You don't assume you know anything about it.
Yes, that's good.
And so I think as you think about the audience that you're speaking to and about, and understand why this many people are in this room for this place, you get a little sense of why we bring the elbows the way we do, and why we claim this space of identity in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion,
I love it.
barring none. Flat out done.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for that, young lady.
Yeah, I have to inject a thought / question.
Yes.
Because I said before, I don't know if you heard it, but I'm from the public and private sector. Right now I work for county government. And so I love that in academia y'all can have the tough conversations. I think you're trained to have these conversations. And I'm dealing with an environment where I think the heart is in the right place, but we're not having the tough, thoughtful conversations. We're not doing the self-reflection. How do you do that managing up, and also how do you keep that momentum? And we're an organization where it doesn't come naturally to folks. Because I find what it leads to oftentimes is performative diversity.
Yes.
And we, and again, the heart's in the right place, but I'm always pushing, and I'm just going to be really, I don't know how else to be direct, is I'm always emphasizing that we can drive excellence and have the representation we want.
Yes.
And we need to make sure we're coaching and provide, don't be scared to provide feedback because it comes off racist. Let's coach people. Not a whole lot of folks think that way, and we like to do the thing and say, okay, we have our director so and so, and then we move on and
yes.
So I'm always struggling. How do we train folks that don't know how to have these conversations, to have them and to do the self-reflection, and that's a whole other thing. This idea of self-reflection.
Yes.
And
yes, it's very difficult, and that's why it's one of the things that people have to do. You have to look in the mirror. There are some good things that you believe about yourself, whether it's an organization or you as a person. There's some things that you wish were different, right? But if you're going to create an office, create a title, create this system, this strategic initiative, then you have to first, before you give any money to create these positions, let's really, talk about, do we have this capacity? Do we really want to be here where there is diversity, equity, inclusion, and retention? Because some people are going to look back and say, well, what does that mean for my job? Because if I bring in more diverse candidates, how does that affect me? Not if this is right, but how does it affect me? Dr. Nick, can you give some insight on how she would have these conversations?
Interesting. So again, I will go like Ken, and I will not monopolize the conversation. So these are very difficult conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that what the academic environments are really very, how can I say, designed to do this better than other places.
Mm-hmm.
The question there is how we can take that and engage it with the community more, how we can bring it more to the community. And this is where I feel that we need a lot more effort to do, because we're not doing it good enough. We may have the conversations amongst ourselves, perhaps in academic environments and so forth, and this is very, but how we engage the broader community, how these conversations can go out, how we can make sure that we have more black women in AI.
Yeah.
So what is the role of the university and our role to go there and work with the communities, to say how we can bring more, black women or minorities to be part of that. So, and I think that as universities, we may have these conversations and we do these kind of things. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, sometimes it's contentious, and so forth. But I feel that we are not doing a good job reaching out to the community. And I think that's something that we all need to take, in my opinion, as a personal goal, if you will, and as a university, of course, to do more.
Okay. And it can be difficult when you're working in certain environments, because certain environments look at the bottom line. They want to know, they want the data, they want the proof of concept. I'm sorry. Yes.
I wanted to add about the space and where we are in academia. So, of course, we are here, there is a meritocracy, right? We expect excellence, and that's been a big conversation, especially in the medical space, of how we are recruiting, how we are, students are getting into medical school, into graduate school. And so even in this space, we have to have those difficult conversations and so it is not exclusive that because we are here and having this conversation, because people are here and have this conversation. But there are people who are not here who would not engage in this conversation. Right? So we are selective.
Just sort of.
And so usually the people who ought to be part of this conversation
are usually not
benefit
present.
deeply. So we are learning, but the people who would benefit deeply are usually not
present.
taking initiative on their own. And so one of the things that I have decided through this process of me being in this role, but also before this, is how do I engage with someone who doesn't think that this is relevant? And I decided that I'll give them grace and grace to myself, and to not and to give them the benefit of the doubt.
That's
that
good.
Inherently they're not a bad person.
That's it.
Inherently that they in general are actually respectful people, but it is that zero sum. There is less of value because I'm saying that we need to diversify and then sometimes I say to them, so do you think that I'm not qualified to be in the role that I am? Not as an associate director, but as a professor, an associate professor getting grants and writing manuscripts, am I not? So if you feel like wow, of course you're qualified, then what about the others? How do we create space for them?
Yeah.
And not to feel, as you were saying, to worry about your personhood and your money and your loss of power, perceived loss of
That's
power.
it.
Because you're not losing power.
That's it. That perceived loss of power. That's right. That's right.
One more thing I wanted to add in regards to what you said in regards to the bottom line. What I tell anybody and everybody when I talk to people now is automation. That's it. We're right there at the door. And when I talk to certain people, even my own self, when I decided to come back to you and go to school, I realized I couldn't, no offense to anybody who's in sociology, but I was like, no, I gotta major in computer engineering because I need to be recession proof. And I tell anybody who works in any particular industries, because I've worked millions of jobs, 20 jobs at least, minimum. Anybody I know that works in trucking, anybody I know that works in accounting or law, I tell them, look, the software is going to take over your job.
Right.
And they think it's funny, but I tell them, no, honey, automation is here. Look at the trucking industry.
Exactly.
Cars, Uber, Lyft, it's over. So right now, there is a sense of urgency in regards to the bottom line, and how are you going to survive? So when I talk to people these days, they're like, all right, I gotta,
Yeah.
that's really where we're at. We have to be honest with ourselves.
But the organizations look at the bottom line, as this young lady was saying, it's sometimes it's difficult to have conversations with the government when you're working for the city or what have you, because whether it's the government or whether it's a private organization, they want the numbers, they want the data, they want to know, why is this important to us? Why should we do this? And again, some people, self-reflection, how does it affect me personally? Am I going to lose my job or my status or whatever it is? So we have to move beyond that. And again, the key takeaways here is we have to have the conversation as we're having right now. We have to do the work. If you want to know about opportunities, how can we connect with different organizations? They're out there. They are everywhere. Again, there's Black in AI. There's Black women in data. There's Black in robotics. There's Black women in artificial intelligence and other organizations. You have to do the work and reach out to them. But one of the things that I want to share with you is you also have to prepare the celebration. Some of you are preparing for Thanksgiving already. You have your menu. Some of you are preparing, those who celebrate Halloween. You may have already gotten your candy ready, and Christmas and New Year's and birthdays and people giving birth. We prepare for the celebration. So when we're connecting with organizations, we're already preparing for the celebration for when we connect with the University of Miami. We're already preparing for the celebration as we work with NVIDIA and we create these cohorts so that the members can learn data science, they can understand computer vision, they can understand Python. We're already preparing for the celebration as we work with Amazon, and we're going to have this conversation, and it's going to be a difficult conversation because Amazon is going through some things. So we're preparing for that conversation in 2 weeks, but we're preparing the celebration that something is going to come out of that. We're preparing the celebration for when we award a young lady a research assistant at the University of Houston Computational Biomedicine Lab. I have to say that right, or something's going to happen to me. We're preparing for the celebration with Central Michigan University as we create a STEM cohort, the first cohort that they've ever created with an outside organization that's focused on sustainable development goals and environmental justice. We're preparing our celebration. And I personally am preparing my celebration. This is not a lifetime appointment for me. I'm the founder of Black Women in Artificial Intelligence, and I know some of you will say that's kind of counterintuitive that you would start a company and you're saying that this is not a lifetime appointment. Because my biggest goal is for this organization to be so successful that it no longer needs to exist. Not a lifetime appointment. I don't want our members' daughters to have to be a member of Black Women in AI in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years. I want them to simply be a Black woman in artificial intelligence. So I'm preparing that celebration. I'm not going to be here, you won't call me in 10 years and say, Angel, what's going on with Black? No, we have a deadline for this. So I need everybody in the room to start working today, because I don't want to have to come back here in 10 years and have the same conversation. I do not. I mean, you guys are great and everything, but I don't want to do that. And it's our duty to make sure that when we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and retention, that we believe it. And that we provide shared power, authority, and influence. Write that down. Put it in your notes. Shared power, authority, and influence. Tweet it out. Yes. LinkedIn, all of that. Because that's what we need when we're sitting at the table. We have to have shared power, authority, and influence when we're making these decisions, when our goal is to increase access and opportunity to individuals. So again, I'm preparing the celebration for the day that I can start a new chapter in my life. And it is not going to be forever for Black women in artificial intelligence. But for now, we're going to continue to make the impact. We're going to continue the movement. We're going to continue to fight so that everyone can have access and opportunity and beyond a seat at the table, power, authority, and influence. And I thank you guys for being a part of this journey as I prepare for my celebration. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
think
you.
maybe no one's leaving for the door, you'll notice, so maybe if you, I assume you have to talk to people. For a few
Yes,
more minutes.
if you guys have any questions or.
How do you get around the first question, like, one of the first things that you put up, that nobody likes to see themselves as a bad person.
Correct.
But like, I'm a privileged person, like, I try hard not to do sexist things, not to do racist things. But if I'm not actively, as a man, if I'm not actively trying to like undo some of the things that are like in our society, then I am in fact being a sexist and a racist and a homophobic. I'm not speaking up against it. Like half the population doesn't think that they are
Right.
sexist and racist. How do we get to them? Because if they don't acknowledge that they are, then what do they do?
For me, when I think about your question and when I'm talking about doing that self-reflection, for me it's specific to what are you saying you want to be? So when you're doing your self-reflection, what do you want to be? Do you want to be the person that does A, B, C, and D? Do you have the capacity? Again, we're asking those questions before you can even go to diversity, equity, and inclusion. You have to ask yourself, like you have, And once you resolve who you are and what your capacity is, if someone asked me right now, okay, Angel, I want you to, I don't know, go skateboarding. I know that's a weird thing, but I can't think of anything else. So I can't skateboard. That's not my capacity. Do you see what I'm saying? And it's not saying that I'm negative or I'm bad or anything like that. It's not pointing a negative finger at me. It's me being honest with myself to say, you know what? I may not be ready for this conversation, right? So you may be in a situation, you may not be ready for a conversation. That doesn't make you racist. You're just not ready. Do you see what I'm saying? Because if you're not ready for a conversation, then it's going to feel as if someone is, blaming you or saying something negative about you. So we really have to understand that.
So you try to reach them that way to make them.
Yeah, and it's not.
Because we want change doesn't mean that I think somebody else mentioned that too, that their heart isn't the right, like our heart is not the right place.
Right.
But like, you need to think more about it.
Yes.
Can I make a comment? Just to
Yes.
respond to Gables a little bit. We want to speak up when we see things being said that are inappropriate, kind of along the terms that you're talking about, sexist or racist or what have you. Sometimes it's great if we have the courage to open up and say, hey, you shouldn't say that, that's inappropriate, that's wrong. But if we are not ready to be the person that calls people out, just be the person that doesn't do it.
That's it.
Right?
That's
So we don't have the responsibility of correcting everybody else's wrongs. If we can and we have the courage to do it, do it. I would jump at the opportunity to tell somebody, hey, but that's not for everyone. And
That's right.
It's okay.
That's right.
It's okay. You just need to know and own your space and know that you're not going to be that person and you're not going to engage in that activity. You're not going to laugh at that joke, right? You're not just going to sit there and pretend like you're engaging in that conversation with that person, right? So there's ways that you can react without being confrontational or feeling like you have to fix the problem for somebody.
That's good.
That's not necessary. But just don't be that, right? And I think sometimes that's enough.
Yes.
That's what we're ready for.
That's right.
I love this conversation. I wonder if I'm like rooting for the wrong type of organization. So I'm struck by the amount of emotional intelligence that's required to get to
Yes.
EI for AI. Maybe I should start EI for AI.
Hey,
so
I
that's
love
not
it.
what I want to say. But what I wanted to ask is there any book, any reading that anyone can suggest on how to anchor these? Because you're right, a combative isn't always effective.
That's right.
And some people would say that you have to, you said it, have these conversations with grace and compassion.
Yes.
To be heard, and to assume the highest person, like the person's operating on the highest self.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if there's some anchoring in a book that we can maybe suggest we read together as in organizations to keep directing people to like questions we're asking ourselves when we find, because I'm right now challenged with this idea, and like I'm seeing it play out where we have women in places of power practicing patriarchy, or like people of color getting in positions and finding value of being the only one in the room. I see that all the time. And outside of the university, I think Miami's a special flavor of that because of our, because we're in Miami.
We're Miami.
I love Miami. I'm from Virginia, but I love Miami. But it's a special type of place.
Yes, I understand.
So anyway,
I'm from Houston, Texas. So trust me, Texas is a different country. It really is. Trust me. I promise. It is. It is. Houston is a little different, but the state, it's. I get it. Yeah. But what are your thoughts, Dr. K? Any books that she could read?
I'm going to thanking what you sparked here is a conversation that I think is a job of universities. We partner with universities all over South Florida to spark conversations, to increase awareness, to get people who care about changing the world to figure out what's to make that happen. Your visit will be immortalized in different ways. Their colleagues here meet each. I thought Dr. George was a hologram until now.
I love it.
COVID, and we're trying to figure out what kind of people we are, and what kind of country and community we want to be.
Yeah.
That you're here. That our mayor is a woman who is, to the best of my knowledge, a wonderful person and committed to the goals that we've heard expressed here. Miami's a good place to be doing this. It's a city that, well, it's got IDSC, but it also has other university partners. It's got a commitment to looking creatively into technology and information technology, and well, the DEI. And what you've done here is you've re-inspired us. What I was trying to say earlier was people wanted to put you aside for another time. I don't know about you, but the last hour and a half went really fast. And when it comes time for talks and lectures, that's a really good sign.
Yes.
But I wanted to give others a chance to maybe pull you aside and have a sidebar, and to look for that grand moment where, on behalf of Nick and Jackie and Eve and IDSC and the University of Miami and its ethics program,
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for the conversation. I appreciate it. Thank you.